Hello YouTube. In this video I wanted to explain to the best of my ability and knowledge all of the letters in the Arabic alphabet. This is not going to be a deep dive academic level kind of video. I just wanted to mainly make it to use it as a reference in my future videos. But I hope that whomever is interested in the Arabic language finds it of some use. That being said, there's a couple disclaimers that I want to make about the Arabic letters. First, the Arabic language is read and written from the right to the left, so whichever comparisons I make on the screen, just keep that in mind. Second, a few letters are not usually included in the Arabic language, in the Arabic alphabet. Whenever we study them at school or you Google them or something, you might not find a couple of letters or marks or whatever. Like two of them are pretty much extinct now and we don't use them at all. One of them is only, we pronounce it but we don't use it, we don't write it down, and it has a lot of use in Al-Quran, religious related situations, and one of them is only considered a mark or like a crown that's placed above the letters. I'm going to talk about it, but for the sake of this video and what I'm trying to do here, I'm going to talk about all of them. So these unusually mentioned letters, I'm going to talk about them as I talk about their siblings. Because there are groups of letters that look similar to each other, but only where you place the point around the letter is what makes the letter sound different. Another thing is that some letters change shape a little bit when they're in the middle of a word or at the beginning of a word or at the end of a word. I'm going to mention that too, and if I'm talking about a group of letters that look the same, that look similar, I'm going to mention that this rule applies to all of them. They all look like this when they're at the beginning, middle, and end. So yeah, one other thing is that these letters have linking rules to them, because in the Arabic language, whenever you use the letters to form a word, you tend to stretch like a tail from the letter to link it to the letter after it. Some letters can be linked to any letters around them before or after. Like if a letter is in the middle of a word, it can be linked to the letter before it and the letter after it. No problem. Some letters can only be linked to the letters before them, some can only be linked to the letters after them. So as I speak about letters, if it's a group of letters that look similar and have similar rules, I'm going to mention that and it applies to the whole group. If it's a unique letter that doesn't have any siblings, I'm going to explain its linking rules as well. So another thing about the Arabic language is that there is this line, and I think this exists in all languages, but like, you know how in lowercase English letters, this shape, this one, has many uses. This is a B, this is a D, and this becomes a Q, and this becomes a P. And it has something to do with the writing line, like how the semicircle shape is above the line and the rest is underneath. Same thing goes for the Arabic letters. It's not very complicated, but I find it difficult to explain without actually showing you how it's written. But I'm going to do my best to explain how each letter is written, whether it's all above the line, all underneath the line, a piece of it is up, a piece of it is... I'm gonna do my best, but I don't want to cause confusion, so I'm not going to go very deep into that. I just wanted to mention that it exists. Now, most, if not all, of these letters, their shapes can be tweaked and changed. The writing rules and the linking rules can be bent and tweaked and edited depending on the font you're using to write, and if you're doing, you know, decorating with it. Because there's like styles of writing that looks like you're drawing the language, which I think you can find in all languages. So in this video, in order not to cause any confusion, I'm going to talk about the most basic shapes. So the writing rules and the linking rules, they're the most basic forms of these letters. When you use them professionally or when you study them at school or something, This is how they look like. These are the rules that apply to them. But obviously they can be bent and stuff. I'm just not going to mention how and all of that. I'm not going to go to those complications in order not to cause any confusion. Anyway, I'm going to leave links down below for articles about the language for whomever is interested in going deeper into it. So yeah. Now, I'm going to start with a letter that is unusual, like already, because it's very relevant to the first letter in the alphabet. The first letter that you usually see in the alphabet. This letter, this unusual one, is called Hamzah. This is how it looks like. Sometimes it's placed alone in a word, and sometimes it's placed above another letter. I'm going to mention that as I get to the letters, it can be placed above. Its general use and purpose is that it's a break in the sound, a halt, a stop. It is a bit similar to the diacritical mark al-sukun, which I mentioned in a previous video, but it's a letter and you can say it's heavier, it's much heavier than just a diacritical mark, and its uses are different from the mark. I'm going to link the critical marks video down below as well. But anyway, I'm just going to give an example here for how it sounds like. This word is ala. It's a masculine name. And I'm going to talk about the other letters later, but generally it's the first letter is Ain, then Laam, Alif, and then Hamzah. And that is how it sounds like. See that at the end of the pronunciation, at the end of the sound, that break, ala. That's how it sounds like. That break, that halt in the sound. That's its job, that's its use. So yeah, that's Al-Hamzah. Now Al-Hamzah doesn't have any linking rules. It can't be tied or linked to any of the letters around it. It always looks like this. Now the next letter is the first official letter in the alphabet, the one that you will always find in any version of the alphabet, Alif. This is how it looks like individually, and this is how it looks like with Al-Hamzah above it. And this is why I wanted to talk about Al-Hamzah first. Usually when it looks like this, it sounds like a vowel. It's used as a vowel. Like this name I mentioned before, Ala, this A vowel in the middle, this is what Alif is doing here. It's just being used as a vowel. But in this name, Ahmad, because it has a Hamzah above it now, it has this heaviness to it. To showcase this better, I'm going to use this very basic, very strong word, la, which literally means no. See how it's pronounced like la. If we remove Hamzah, it becomes la. So that's the whole difference, and that's why Al-Hamzah is used sometimes with Alif, to pretty much make the difference between it being used as a consonant and as a vowel. Use Al-Hamzah, it becomes a consonant. Remove it, it becomes a vowel. That's basically it. There are a few exceptions. You find them in Quran, you find them in religion, but it has something to do with familiarity and how when it's placed at the beginning of a word, it mostly doesn't need Hamzah, because it's always going to be used as a consonant anyway if it's in the beginning of a word, because it's in the beginning. What are you going to do? It can't be silent. If it's in the beginning of a word, you're going to start as a. So this name again, if we remove Hamzah, it still sounds like Ahmed. There's no going around it. Okay, I forgot to mention this. Sometimes Alif can be pronounced as O, like the English letter O, but it's very situational. First, Al-Hamzah has to be above it, so it has to be written and it has to be above Alif. And above that, above all of that, Al-Hamzah and Alif, you need to find this diacritical mark, which is called Al-Damma. If you find this above Alif, you pronounce Alif as O instead of A. However, it can also be placed underneath Alif. And when this happens, the pronunciation of Alif becomes, as we call it in Arabic, broken. As in, the vowel now used with it is E instead of A. So this letter is pronounced literally E. In this word, for example, which is a feminine name that means inspiration, is pronounced ilham. Placing the Hamzah underneath Alif gives it a whole different sound, a whole different vocalization, pronunciation. Ilham. But if Al-Hamza isn't there, it's a vowel, and if Al-Hamza is underneath it, it's going to be pronounced as E. Its linking rules and its writing rules for the line are simple. For the writing line, it has to always be above the line and touching the line. It can't be floating up, it has to be touching the line. The linking rules for Alif now is that it can be linked to letters before it, but it cannot be linked to letters after it. It has to be individual. There has to be a little space between it and whichever letter comes after it. Now, the next letter is a part of a group. This is how this group looks like. We call this like a plate shape with the placement of the points around it that makes the only difference between these letters in writing and gives them their meaning and their sounds. Ba, ta, and finally Thaa. Ba is your basic English B. Ta is the basic English T. Thaa is like TH in thermostat. Yeah. They have the same writing rules. They all have to be placed above the writing line, right on it, like they're placed on it, they're put on it, like they're put on a disc or something. The point of Ba is placed underneath it, it only has 1 point. Ta has 2 points above it, and Thaa has 3 points above it. That's the general rule for them. And for the linking, they can be linked to any letters before or after them, depending on also the linking rules for those letters as well. Like they can be linked to Alif if Alif becomes before them, for example. That being said about the group, there is another letter, another sibling of this group that is unusual. This is the second unusual letter I'm going to mention, and that is Pa. Has 3 points underneath it. We rarely see it now. It's the English P, and it has all the linking rules and everything else that applies to its siblings, but it's usually not mentioned in the alphabet at all. And this group, when they're at the beginning of a word, they all look, their shape always looks like this. When they're in the middle, they look like this, and in the end, they look like this. They pretty much preserve their shape with being just linked to the letters before them, that's it. Alright, the next group is these guys. Geem, Hhaa, and Khaa. This is where complications and these unusual or these unique syllables come into play. Now let me explain how they are pronounced first, and then we can talk about their linking rules, etc. I have a couple of notes here that I prepared to explain this because I actually didn't know how to explain how they're pronounced before. I can pronounce them, but I didn't know how to explain how to make these sounds. The first one is basic. Geem is the basic English G, not J. We'll get to that. This is G. They all look like this, of course, and the difference is just in the point and where it is. The next one is Hhaa. And this sound, okay, it's the sound you make when you clear your throat. Only keep your mouth open when you do. Hhaa. Hhaa. Yeah, sounds pretty, I don't know. I mean, of course, it might be difficult for someone who grew up in different languages where they don't have this syllable, but this is how to make the sound anyway. As if you're clearing your throat, but just keep your mouth open. I don't know the open mouth thing, but anyway, this is... I don't know, this is how it sounds like. Ha. Anyway, let's move on to the next one, and that is Khaa. This one, to explain it, it's gonna be a little bit disgusting. At least from what I remember writing those notes. Yeah, let's go. It's like forcing phlegm out. It's gross, but anyway, this is how it sounds like. Khaa. Khaa. It's like the air is, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not very good at explaining how to make this sound. That's why I searched for these. But anyway, before I get to the linking rules, this dude is another, not really extinct letter, but we still don't study it. But, however, we still use it a lot. We still pronounce it a lot, especially the Upper Egyptian accent. They tend to replace the pronunciation of its sibling, Geem, with this letter. And it sounds like Jeem. It has 3 points in, you know, this semicircle shape in the middle. And that's how it sounds like. We don't study it at school, but you find it a lot in Al-Quran. Now, regarding the writing rules, when they look like this shape that looks like a mouth or so, like a crocodile mouth, is always above the writing line, and the rest of the circle is underneath the line. However, when they are in the words now, at the beginning of a word, they look like this. The shape looks like this. The placement of a point is respective, the same. When they are in the middle, they look like this. And when they are at the end, pretty much the same rule that applies to the previous group. They keep their shape with the exception of the link that ties them to the letters before them. Next group is just 2 siblings. No unusual letters or any surprises here. Daal and Thaal. Daal is a very simple English D, same exact letter, pretty much. Thaal is like TH when they're in the word that, or that, or this. This pronunciation, when you place your tongue between your teeth and make it vibrate a little bit, Thaal, that's it. That's it. Even though when you're trying to pronounce Thaa, it's pretty much the same, but you don't make your mouth vibrate. You just blow in it. Thaa. Yeah. This is how they look like. Daal is just Daal, and Thaal looks like Daal with a point above it. I don't know why I explain like this, but anyway, they always look like this. They can only be tied or linked to letters before them, but they can't ever be linked to letters after them. They're always placed above the writing line. That's Daal and Thaal. There isn't much to say about these guys, but they're awesome, they're cool. They're pretty cool. Raa and Zain. Another group that only consists of 2 siblings. Again, no surprising letters here. Raa is not exactly the English R, because this is the rolled R. This isn't R, this is R. We actually don't have R. We always pronounce Raa like this. Except for me, but well, I'm weird. It's not that, because I taught myself English, now I can pronounce both. How cool is that? Anyway, Zain is literally the English Z. That's it. And they are similar to the previous group, Daal and Thaal, except that this shape, just a little bit of it is placed above the writing line, and the rest of this semicircle is underneath the line. They can only be linked to letters before them. They can't be linked to letters after them. And they always preserve their shape. They always look like this because they can only be linked to the letters before them anyway. So their shape doesn't change. Sheen and Sheen. Another group that only consists of 2 siblings. Now these bad boys are pretty, they're pretty simple. Sheen is exactly the English S, sometimes C when it's pronounced like S. Sheen is like SH, you know, Sheen. Their writing rules now, when they're individual or when they're at the end of a word and they preserve their shape like this. This fork shape is above the line and the semicircle shape is underneath the line. But when they're in the beginning of a word, they look like this. And when they're in the middle, they look like this. They can be linked to any letters around them. Should have said that first. But anyway, yeah. Sheen and Sheen everywhere. They're cool. They're really cool. I really like Sheen. It's my favorite letter. Not that I don't like Sheen, it's okay. But... Alright. Tricky, these two. Saad and Daad. I came up with a pretty funny way of explaining how to make these sounds, but let's take it step by step. Saad is like seen, like S, except that instead of smiling as you make the sound, you frown, you know. Saad, you know, instead of seen. Because if you actually close your mouth as you say seen, it becomes, you know, seen. Seen. So you have to open your mouth a little bit. Seen. I don't know. I don't think that's accurate. But anyway, I prepared notes about it. So to make this one, start by saying S normally, then pull the middle of your tongue to the base of your mouth. What? That doesn't make sense. Don't listen to that note. But anyway, since I can't explain it, and neither can whomever wrote that note, this is how it sounds like. And I guess you're gonna have to use common sense or go to someone who can explain it better than me. Saad. It's like a thicker, more pressured version of S. I don't know how else to explain it, man. And the same thing goes for Daad. It's like D, but heavier and more like aggressive. I don't know. Daad. Daad. Oh, God. The same linking rules for the previous group, Sheen and Sheen, apply to Saad and Daad. They can be linked to all the letters around them. This is how they look at the beginning, middle, and end. And when they are at the end or they are individual, this, I don't know, the first part of the, I don't know how to explain how it looks like a balloon, a vertical, horizontal balloon. I don't know. This shape, the first half. I don't know, the top half. It's always placed above the line, and the rest of the semicircle shaped thing is underneath the line. Man, that was difficult to explain. Ttaa and Thaa. Another group that only consists of two siblings, with difference between them is just the point again. Ttaa is like a pressured T. Ttaa. Ttaa. You do this. I don't know. The air pressure is very high with this one. Ttaa. It's not just T. Ttaa. And Thaa is, have no idea how to explain this one, man. It's like Daal. It's like, you know, TH and Thaa and that, but again, more pressured, heavier, more aggressive, more narrow. I don't know. But anyway, this is how it sounds like. Thaa. Thaa. I always, again, you place your tongue between your teeth and make it vibrate, but make the sound heavier, much heavier. Thaa. Instead of that, it's Thaa. And their linking rules, pretty simple. They can be linked to all the letters around them. This is how they look like at the beginning, then middle, then end. The whole shape always is placed exactly on the writing line. Nothing is floating or going underneath the line. Alright, this is a fan favorite. Ain and Ghain. I don't know why I said fan favorite. Who said that? Ain and Ghain. Two siblings again. And let me check the notes for this one. The sound comes from the throat. It's the sound you make when you gag. Anyway, this is how it looks like. Ain. This is how it sounds like. Looks. This is how it sounds like. Ain. Like the name I mentioned at the very beginning of the video. Ala. The sound. I mean, I emphasize a little bit. When we pronounce the name, we just say Ala. 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 We don't say Ala like I just did. But anyway, that's how it sounds like. This is how it looks like. Its sibling is Ghain. This sound is like, I mean, I don't know, I guess to explain it you can say that it's like gargling on air. It's the same sound you make when you gargle, like when you brush your teeth and then you gargle. It's exactly the same sound. Ghain, ghain. Like this word, gharib, which means a stranger or weird, like me. Or ghurab, which is a crow. Yeah. Anyway, they can be linked to all letters around them, but their shape changes at the beginning and middle. So beginning they look like this, middle they look like this, end they reserve their shape with only the link tying them to the letters before. And this shape that looks like Hamzah is always above the line. It can float a little bit as it's linked to the letters around it, and the rest of the shape, that semicircle shape, is underneath the line. Faa and Qaaf, they don't exactly look the same now. Faa is looks more like a plate. The whole shape is placed above the line, but Qaaf, it looks like a bowl instead of a plate, and a bit of the semicircle shape is underneath the line. So the circle shape of Faa is floating a little bit above the line to have the rest of the plate shape on the line, and with Qaaf, the circular shape is touching the line because the rest of the plate is sinking underneath the line. They are your basic F and Q, I guess, in English. I mean, this one is not exactly Q, it's more pressured, more heavy sound. Khaa, Khaa, Qaaf. It comes from, I don't know, this bang in air that comes from the throat. So you hold the air a little bit and then you shoot it with force. You force the air out. Qaaf, Khaa, Khaa. But anyway, that's how it sounds like. Qaaf. So they both have the same exact linking rules. They can be linked to all letters around them. When they're in the beginning, they look like this. They look very similar now. In the middle, they look like this. And at the end, they preserve their shapes again with just the link that ties them to the letters before them. And now these two have an extinct sibling, and that is Va. As I explained, Fa is the English F. Va is the English V. We don't study this, we don't see it anymore. It has the 3 points above it, similar to Jeem. And this is how it's pronounced. You know, the English V. We in Arabic don't usually pronounce V, and I think that's why it sort of went extinct. But yeah, this is Va. All the rules, everything that I said about its siblings applies to it as well. Now, the upcoming letters might find, like you might see some similarities between a couple of them, but they are not siblings anymore. There's no siblings anymore now. So I'm going to talk about each one of them individually. Kaaf. Boy, this one is weird. Okay, its syllable is very basic. This is the English K, or C when it's pronounced as K, or Q when it sounds like K, all of them. It's called Kaaf. See, there's a Hamzah in there, even though it's not serving the break, halt, stop in the sound thing that I mentioned before with Alif and with it individually. It's just here to make it look different from the next letter, which looks like this. I'm gonna explain later now, but just to make it look different from that one, we use Hamzah in it, and we place the whole letter on the line. It touches the line. That next letter, a part of it goes underneath the line. I'll talk about it later. But anyway, Kaaf changes its shape completely. We remove Hamzah when it's placed at the beginning or at the middle of a word. So it can be linked to anything around it. And at the end, well, it preserves its shape. I don't think it was as difficult to explain as I imagined it would have been, but I hope that I actually was able to explain it. Like, I hope that I did a good job with that. So, yeah, there you go. The next one, which I just mentioned as I was explaining Kaaf, Laam. Syllable, very simple. This is the English L, and it kind of looks like an L. Except that it's mirrored. Anyway, in Arabic it's called Laam, and its linking rules they kind of depend. When it's linked to Alif, when Alif comes after it, the way it's linked to it looks like this. It's very unique to Alif, just Alif. This is how it's linked to only Alif. To sort of preserve the shape of Lam. So, for example, this word I mentioned before, La, which means no, it looks like this. And Ala, the name I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it looks like this. So instead of placing Hamzah here to make it sound like, if we place the Hamzah here, it becomes Ala. So we remove the Hamzah and put it on the line and it becomes Ala. So now Alif is a vowel. Anyway, with the rest of the letters, any other letters, when Alif doesn't come to play or Alif is before it, this is how Lam looks like. At the beginning of a word, it looks like this. In the middle, it looks like this. And at the end, it preserves its shape. Now, it's not all placed above the line like Kaaf. No, the semicircle shape goes underneath. It sinks underneath the line. But yeah, very basic letter when it comes to its pronunciation, but its shape is what looks a little bit tricky. Meem. Sounds funny, I know. This is the basic M, and this is how it basically looks like. When it's individual, it looks like this. It can be tied and linked to all of the letters around it. This is how it looks like at the beginning, middle, and end. It reserves its tail shape, and it's a very basic circle, and it's a very basic letter, M. Well, that's pretty much it about me. Noon. No, it's not a sibling of the very first group of letters because it looks like a bowl. So most of its shape is sinking underneath the line. Most, not all. I didn't say all of it, okay? I said most. So just a little bit of its shape is above the line and the rest is underneath. But that's when it's individual or at the end of a word. When it's in the beginning, it looks like this. Middle looks like this. It looks like it does look like that group, okay? But when it's alone, poor guy, it looks like this. It's a basic English N, and it's called noon. Already said that. That's it. Let's move on. Let's move on because the next one is a doozy. I'm gonna do my best to explain it, but alright. It's not just this one that's complicated, then the rest of the letters are very, very mean. Anyway, Hhaa. It sounds very simple, okay? It's the English H. It's very innocent, right? No. See, the way it's written is very... Okay, let's take it step by step, okay? This is how it looks like at the beginning of a word. When it's in the middle, it can preserve its shape, or it can look like a freaking bow tie. Or it can even look like this. Anyway, when it's at the end of a word, this is just, okay, this is how, I don't know, okay? This is how it looks like. Beginning, middle, end. I think that's it. It's not that bad. Good luck. When it's not tied to any letters around it, when it's at the end of a word and it's not tied to the letters before it, to the letter before it, it looks like just a freaking ball that you found on the road, like a rock or something. Sometimes you will find two little ears on its head like this. Sometimes you won't, so you're just gonna have to be careful. When you're reading the letters and you just see it, especially that there is a surprise upcoming that's gonna make this even more. And when it's tied, when it's linked to the letters before it, when it's in the end and linked, it flies. I swear it's very easy actually. I think it's very easy for me. Like, I've been using it my whole life, so it's easy for me, but wow. Yeah, this is what it's called. I'm not amazed or something. This is what this letter is called. Wow. Yeah. Not wow, no, wow. Wow. Not whoa. No. Wow. Yeah. Now this one, at least its writing rules, I'm gonna start with its writing rules, okay? Its writing rules are simple. It can't be tied to letters after it, like this group and this group. So always preserves it's cool, right? Yeah. It sounds easy, it's not. Or maybe I'm just dumb and I don't know how to explain it, but it's just, let me get out of the way a little bit here, okay? Because it's not like I look that good right now. I mean, my hair is a mess. Yeah, that's why I'm wearing this, because my hair is not because it's cold. I mean, it's cold, but not enough. I guess it doesn't look that bad. Anyway, so cold. My hair is clean, okay? It's clean, but it is a mess because I keep wearing this. And because water here isn't that great, so it's damaged. No, my hair is damaged, but it's not that bad. And it's curly, so it looks like, I don't even know, barbed wire? Anyway, so this dude, the writing rules are simple. The circular shape is above the line, the rest of the shape is underneath the line, and I already explained the linking rules. It's W and O and U and I think that's it. Yeah. It's W, U, O, my head. Okay. Look, its pronunciation, you know, its syllable is always going to be wa. You know, like the wow sound in the word watch, so it's always wow. You know what I mean? Like, it can be used as a consonant and as a vowel. When it's a vowel, it's U and O, right? Like, I think W isn't used as a vowel, it's always a consonant, like in the word watch. But anyway, it's the wow sound in watch, it's the wow vowel in hour. This is always going to be the letter that we're going to use for that sound, because we don't have any other letters that resemble this move of the sound, this syllable, this sound of going like O. We don't have any other letters in the Arabic language to symbolize that sound, that move, that vocal move. The only one that we use for all of those is this dude. So it's a little bit complicated, but anyway, this is the O sound. This is the letter responsible for the O sound. Whichever English letter you're using to create this sound, it's always going to transfer in Arabic to this letter. Unless the sound is too short to deserve the use of a letter, in that case we're going to use a diacritical mark, and for that, again, I'm going to link the diacritical marks video down below, because that's a whole different thing and my head already hurts just looking at this letter. I forgot to explain that we also use Hamzah with Waaw. But this one is very simple. We use Hamzah with it because sometimes we need to add that break in the sound that Hamzah symbolizes. You know, that halt in the sound, that stop, that heavy stop in a word like this. Lu'a. lo, lo. See, because you go from Laam to Waaw, lo, but you want to stop on the O sound of Waaw. So to create that heavy stop, we place Hamzah. If we place the diacritical mark sukoon, which resembles a stop as well, it sounds like low. So you still stop, but it sounds so weird. So it becomes low, low, ha. It doesn't make sense. So lo, lo, ah. Now the reason why the second one goes ah is because of Hhaa at the end here. We need to move with the sound, vocally move from Waaw and Hamzah to Hhaa. So we go up, ah, lo, ah. It's weird, but anyway, this is how Hamzah is being used with Waaw. Man, my voice breaks a lot. Okay, yeah. Also can be used as both consonant and a vowel. For example, in its own name, it's being used as a consonant. Yeah, this is how its name looks like when it's written down. It starts with the letter itself, yeah, and then Alif being used as a vowel, and then Hamzah being used as a break in the sound. So it becomes yeah. This is how it looks like when it's individual, and this one has many uses in other cases, so just keep that in mind here. This is how it looks like when it's individual. It looks, you know, like I don't know, a worm or a ship or a goose. There was another bird. There's a lot of birds that it looks like. Anyway, with 2 points underneath it, and when it's at it can be tied, it can be linked to all letters around it. When it's at the beginning, this is how it looks like, just like the example I gave before, its own name. When it's in the middle, this is how it looks like. When it's at the end, this is how it looks like. Reserves its shape. Feast your eyes on this because it's going to change now. When it's placed at the end of a word, we can remove the 2 points, but that changes it to become a completely different letter that we call the lean alif. Example, these 2 words. They use the letter Ain here. So the first one is a name, a masculine name, Ali or Ali, depending on the accent. So in my accent, we pronounce it Ali. This is a whole different topic. Anyway, and when it looks like this, when it's a lean alif now, it becomes ala, which means on, like on something. So we don't write this word ala on like this. This is pronounced ala. No. This is another name, a feminine name, pronounced ula. Yeah, it's a little complicated, but the general idea is when it has 2 points underneath it, it's ya. It's the letter ya. When you remove the 2 points, it's the alif when it's used as a vowel. That's the general idea. So it's never alif with Hamzah. It's never a. This is always going to be like you know, like ala. So it's always going to be the vowel, the alif vowel or the a vowel. But Hamzah can be used with it in the middle of words as well. This word mar'i, mar'i. It means visible. It can be seen. The complete opposite of Drax and John Cena. I'm not making things simpler, am I? But anyway, to make that sound, mar'i, to make that a in the middle. You know how when it's placed above the letter alif, it becomes like in this word, la. We're going up. The vowel here is a. When it's placed above this letter, Waaw, we're going for the O vowel, like lo, lo'a. which I explained before. Here it's being placed above ya because we want the break in the sound like la and lo, but li. Now I don't have a word for li, but mar'i goes like this. It's not mir'i. I know what you're thinking. No, it's mar'i because we stop at ra for the purpose of the meaning of the word. Mir'i, it doesn't sound that good even, or at least for my Arabic common sense, it doesn't sound good for me. So that's why it's pronounced this way, because just like it sounded wrong to me, it sounds wrong to literally every Arabic tongue, unless a stubborn person pops up in the comments and says, sounds good to me, I don't care. Anyway, the Hamzah is being placed above ya, and when it's placed above ya, when these two are ever used together, the 2 points underneath ya are removed. Very simple stuff. I think I went through it. I mean, good job with, good luck with understanding. But for me, I got through explaining it, so I'm relieved now. Seriously, good luck. I'm rooting for you. I can give more examples if you want, I have none on my head right now, except for that terrible looking hair. I swear it's clean, it's a long story. My hair isn't that good, or the water isn't that good. And honestly, I don't care, as long as my hair is clean, I don't care. And I'm not gonna get a haircut right now, because it's too cold and my hair is keeping me warm, okay? It's not cold enough for me to do this again, but it's still too cold, okay? And it gets so cold at night. We are at night right now, but it's not that cold yet because my window's closed. It's a long story, okay? And when I made coffee in this room right here to warm it up a little bit. And I think when I made lunch, I made it in here as well. No, wait. No, yeah, I think I made it outside. Anyway, because I can move the stove. It's a small stove. And why am I talking about this? Let's just move on. Wait, move on to what? Oh God. This is gonna be great. Step by step. It looks like Hhaa when it's placed at the end of a word with no ties, but this isn't Hhaa. This is the tied Ttaa. The tied Ttaa. In Arabic we say Tih marbuta. Yeah. Okay, step by step. It's actually very simple. The general idea here is that when you see this one, you pronounce or you add the sound of a T at the very, very, very end of the pronunciation of that word. This word, which I mentioned before, lu'a, at the end of its pronunciation, there is a subtle ha sound and a subtle h sound, lu'a. But if we replace the ha or the tied ha with the tied ta, it becomes lu'at. But this pronunciation means that there is going to be another word afterwards. Usually that word is a name, but we are now going to get into grammar and grammatical rules, which I am not very good at, and the Arabic grammar made me cry at school, so I'm not going to get into that. But the point and what I have to convey here is that when it's individual, we use ha. When it's not, we use ta. And this same example, this same rule, this same thing, it happens a lot. But anyway, when you're trying to read the word, when you see it like this, it becomes lu'ah. You add a very subtle H sound at the end, not like what I just did, no, lu'ah. Not lu'ah, lu'ah. And when you see a ta, when you see 2 points above that shape, that bowl shape, that circle, it becomes lu'at. There's a T at the end of the pronunciation. It's really that's basically it. It can be tied 2 letters before it, but just like with Hhaa, it flies and ties and rhymes. That's everything I know about the Arabic letters. Hopefully I did a good job with it. Hopefully I didn't forget anything, because it took a while to write this script. Yeah, I wrote a script. It doesn't seem like I did because I'm new to this, but I did. Yeah, it wasn't a great script either, but I did my best. Anyway, I hope this is useful and it's not as bad as I think it is in my head. But yeah.